Hello and welcome to Voices Unheard, the last show of season 1. Thank you for joining us during your noon hour and this Pride Week. This show is produced by Unicorns Live. I am your host, Jessica Samuels, and my pronouns are she and her. I would like to start with someone who may or may not need an introduction, but we're going to toss it over to him anyway. My guest today is
Wilbur Turner.
Okay.
And first of all, happy Pride.
Yay! Happy Pride. All right. And I would like to start today by acknowledging that we live, work, and play on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded lands of the Okanagan Nation and Syilx people. And I would like to say special thank you to Canada Kelowna Hotel and Conference Center, who's been an incredible support during this season for hosting us here for every single episode, as well as Kelowna Pride and Castanet Media. Let's dive right in, jump right in. Wilbur Turner, thank you so much for joining us. Pride Week, I feel like this is kind of a come full circle for you.
Absolutely. So I moved first to Kelowna in 2011, toward the end of 2011. And then I left in 2017, moved to Calgary, and yesterday I came back.
You came back yesterday?
I came back yesterday. And it's really kind of fitting to be coming back in Pride Week. When I came here in 2011, things were quite different when it came to Pride. And it was the beginning of the kind of a new term for the mayor, Walter Gray, who had been out of politics in Kelowna as mayor for about 4 years when he lost to Sharon Shepherd. And then he was now back. And many people will probably be aware of the story when he was mayor previously, when he refused to proclaim Pride Week and said you couldn't say gay and pride in the same sentence.
Right.
So, you know, the thing that that people say, can a leopard change his spots? And probably not, but a politician can evolve. And there were some big changes coming in Kelowna.
Right. And let's elaborate a little bit more on that situation, and certainly not to belabor it, but you said the then mayor, Walter Gray, indicated that he was not going to issue a proclamation that had pride and gay and lesbian in the same sentence. And subsequently, what happened, I think it was 3 years later, the BC Human Rights Tribunal indicated that this was a human rights violation. Then subsequently after that, the mayor indicated that he was going to no longer give proclamations for a number of reasons. Part of it saying that proclamations was just kind of like a willy-nilly thing, that they didn't have weight or meaning behind them. I'm sorry if I'm misquoting, but partially because of that, but partially because I think the idea was that proclamations were being given every week for everything. But this is a sequence of events that was happening. And it also talks about the climate in Kelowna during that time. So when he originally declined to give that specific proclamation, you were not in Kelowna.
No, I was not.
Okay. Where were you living? So this is 97? I think 97 was the year that the proclamation did not go forward. Where were you in 1997?
I was in Calgary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talk about the Pride community in Calgary in 97.
Well, it was quite small, actually. It was beginning to grow, but probably, I would say, close to that time was when I remember the first Pride parade that I ever went to was in Calgary.
Wow.
And it was a block long, and they didn't even close the street off. It was just like, you know, like this truck going down the street with a flatbed on it.
Okay, wait, the parade itself, the distance of the parade was a block long? Oh,
yes.
I thought you meant there was a block long of people. Okay.
And there weren't a lot of spectators. There was just pockets of people here and there.
Yeah.
And what was really outstanding to me in that event was that Joe Clark was the Grand Marshal. And people were really talking about it, because that was unheard of for a politician to be involved in Pride, and especially in the 90s. And
Yeah.
so it was kind of a big deal. And that's my memory of my first Pride, because I had recently, only a couple years before that had come out,
Right.
and I wanted to see what it was all about.
And so you had only just recently come out prior to that, and this is your first Pride. Uh, how did it make you feel? What were the thoughts going through your head?
Well, one of the things that was going through my head was I was hoping the media wasn't going to be there, because I didn't want to be seen there. And I was worried about safety, because there was, when a bunch of gay and lesbian people are together, what are the, we called them the rednecks, of course. What are they going to do? Are they going to protest it? Are they going to come out and throw stuff at us, or what's going to happen? So I think we're all a little bit concerned about our own safety. And I remember at the same time, same era, was the gay rodeo was happening, and it was an international event, simply because the International Gay Rodeo Association developed in the U.S., and the only outside of U.S. event was in Calgary.
Wow.
And that was in the 90s as well. And media was forbidden to come, and you weren't allowed to take pictures because people didn't want to be outed.
Oh.
And so that was the climate that we were in.
To me, that is an interesting juxtaposition. So I want to get to you personally there for a minute, but the essence of Pride, the idea of Pride, is saying, here we are, love us, we're everywhere, we're important, we're real, see us, hear us, but don't film us and don't out us.
Yes.
That feels like a real dichotomy of feelings and emotions. So for you personally, you had just come out. Then what prompted you to go to Pride if you didn't want to be seen or further outed?
I think I was looking for a way to connect with other people like me. And the only other way to do it would be to go to a gay bar. And, this was something more public, and just to see who was brave enough to come out, and, maybe we could join forces, maybe we could do things together.
So that's an element, when I was describing about what Pride was about, that's an element probably that I missed, the sense of connection and
Yes.
community amongst the Pride community.
And knowing that there's other people like you, that you're not alone.
You mentioned you had just come out prior to that, a few years. How old were you when you came out? And talk about what led to you finally saying, yes, this is who I am.
I was 39, and I'd been married for 18 years, had 2 children who were teenagers, and I had been, I really, when I was growing up, I knew I was different, but I didn't know what the word was for it. There was no language. I didn't have language for it, and I lived in a very sheltered family. We were part of a Christian cult that didn't mix with people outside of the church. And so we didn't have access to a lot of things that people did, like television and things that would help you to understand what was going on in the bigger world. So I knew I was different. I didn't know what it was. I didn't actually realize I was gay until after I was married. And how I found out was I was reading personal ads in the Vancouver Sun, because I lived in Vancouver at the time. And I saw I just happened to be reading the personal ads and saw men looking for men. And it was like, little ding. A light bulb went off, and I was like, oh, that's me.
Wow.
And at the time I was probably 20 and married with a child. And so I didn't say anything about it to my wife until about 10 years later. I let her know. I told her that I was gay, and she told me that it was probably just a phase and to wait and get over it. And so that was all we talked about it and then the next 8 years. And finally, it came to the point where I started developing friendships with gay people. And we had neighbors across the street who were a gay couple, and my wife and I became friends with them. We did a lot of things with them, traveled with them. And then it became too much for my wife to deal with. And so she was the one who was responsible for releasing me from the closet.
Okay, that's interesting phrasing. Tell us more about that.
Well, I kind of felt like I was blasted out of the closet.
Okay.
So what happened was she let my family know that I was gay. I came home from work one day and the locks were changed on the house. So, and being part of the church that I was still part of, then all of a sudden I had no friends because they didn't want to be around me. And it kind of felt like a switch had been turned off in my life. So it was just kind of black for a while. And I really didn't know who I could talk to. I didn't know if there was anyone in my family I could talk to. I didn't have any friends I could talk to. And so I felt very isolated. And the reaction of my family was mixed. My mother did not take it well and told me that I should go to a doctor and get fixed, and that they probably had some medication that would fix me. And she really was in denial.
What were you thinking when you hear that from your mother? I mean, did you have a sense of, no, this is who I am, I'm going to stay this way, or did you want to be fixed?
Oh, no, I totally resisted what she was talking about. And in fact, it kind of shut us down, our relationship down. I didn't really want to talk with her about it. And one of my brothers said, why do we have to have someone like that in the family? So I knew that he was definitely not on board. My oldest brother was very supportive, and my sister. But even I didn't know if my sister was or not, because we never talked about it, and I was kind of scared to talk to her about it until quite a few years later. And then it became very obvious that she was very supportive. And my twin brother, and we were very close, we're identical twins. When I came out to him, it was in a phone call, and I had met someone who I was dating, and I was very excited to tell him about it. And what he said to me on the phone was, and this is 25 years ago, he said, well, you cannot bring that person to our house, and I don't want that in front of my children. And it was the language that was used that was really hurtful to say, described as that. So that kind of shut down that relationship. So I kind of, I've had a lot of years of that, kind of estrangement from some family members, and then others very, very supportive.
And it explains when you were talking about how you went to Pride, how you hoped there weren't any cameras or TV crews, because the process obviously very difficult in coming out, and wasn't your decision to come out in that way.
Yeah. And the other thing was I was very concerned about was people I worked with finding out and not knowing how that was going to, the reaction there as well.
Interesting, in our pre-conversation ahead of this, you said something to me, and you said, we're constantly coming out. And when you talked about the workplace, that was one of the places that I thought of, also because I know you're back in Kelowna, and thinking about that. So yeah, and for people who may not understand that concept, talk about what it feels to always be thinking about coming out for every new experience.
Well, I guess one of the ways I would, recently can relate to it is when I moved to Calgary, I got a new job there, and I was involved in training, hiring and training people, and the training was one-on-one, and it was 2 or 3 days long, one-on-one with a new person, and so you kind of get to know people a little bit that way. And one of the first things that people want to know about you is, are you married? Do you have kids? And then the next obvious question, if you say you're married, is, well, what does your wife do? And it's always that thing that comes up for you is, now how do I approach this? Like, how do I deal with this situation. So I try to be proactive, and I try to drop a few little hints here and there before that conversation ever happens, so that I can kind of set the ground for how the conversation is going to play out, because I feel like I need to control that. And I can't just let it come up all of a sudden, because I don't know how that person's going to be. So I kind of feel them out a little bit first.
It's interesting how you describe that. It's a bit of protecting yourself, a little bit of maybe saving face for the other individual.
Yes, yeah.
You drop little crumbs along the way and hope they pick them up and understand what's happening.
Yes, absolutely.
Interesting. And okay, so then let's go back to your story. You were talking about your first Pride experience in Calgary, and then a few years later we had what was happening in Kelowna. Was that even on your radar about, would that even have made the news about Pride not being declared in this community?
I was unaware of it completely.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And so then you went from Calgary, then you went to Vancouver, and you had your experiences there. Talk about the evolution of you being comfortable in sharing kind of your true self and who you are and the Pride community in Vancouver.
Well, actually, in Vancouver, I really didn't get involved that much. I was only there for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. I was definitely a participant in the Pride activities and going to see the parade, but I didn't volunteer there.
Okay.
So prior to that, I had volunteered quite a bit in Calgary, not for Pride, but for charities that help for HIV/AIDS and so on.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So then when you get involved with it, when you're here in Kelowna, you kind of hit the jackpot with in the midst of this swirling vortex of a situation here in Kelowna. So remind me of the year. It was
2011 when I
11?
arrived in the fall.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you were 2012, was it, when you were leading the Pride
Yes.
event?
Yeah.
And there you are on stage with the re-elected Mayor Walter Gray. He reads the proclamation.
Yes. So the backstory to that was all of the events most of the events that year for Pride were emceed by me in drag. And this was my first time ever doing drag.
Okay.
So my name was Audrey, Oddree. And I picked the last name May or May Not. And it was very symbolic of what was happening.
Oh, wow. Okay, well done.
So I arrived, and it was at the park just off of KLO and the regional district park, and there was a stage set up, and I didn't have anything to do with that part of it because I wasn't on the board yet for Pride. I was just volunteering. And so the people who were involved with Pride had invited Walter Gray, they invited the MLAs, the city councillors, and so they were all sitting on the stage, on chairs at the back of the stage, and I was the MC in drag. And so I rolled up, and one of the limo companies had donated a limo, so they came and got me and brought me in. I come out, I'm in drag, I walk up, and I had never met Walter before. So I went up to him and introduced myself. And the first thing he said to me was, "We're just going to have fun today, aren't we?" So there was apprehension.
Okay.
I'm sure that he didn't know how the crowd was going to react to him being there. And I think he was concerned about it to some extent. So we get on the stage, and I'm introducing all the dignitaries, and he's the last one because he's the mayor, so it comes from the member of parliament to the MLAs and then to him. I introduced them all and just let them talk. So then when he got up, we each had a microphone, one at each side of the stage. And so he gets up, and I introduce him, and before he talks, I said, "But before you talk, I want to just, you and I have a little talk."
Oh.
And I said, "I've been telling everyone that you and I are going to be here today, and we're having a date in the park." And I said, "I don't know if you're single or not, but I've been thinking a lot about you.
Oh my goodness. And what was he doing? Was his
He
eyes
was
just
kind
going
of,
like,
yes, and kind of laughing. And then he actually had a really good comeback. He said, well, I've been sitting here looking at your derriere and I've changed my mind. And I said, okay, well, buyer beware. So there's a really great video on YouTube of all of this.
oh, and was the crowd just loving it?
Yes,
Oh,
they were
I
loving
bet.
it. And of course, the TV cameras were there and the newspaper people and everything. And so I said, this is a good time for a photo op. So I said, I'm going to come over to you. I said, you love the media, you know how to work the media, and I'm trying to learn how to do it. I kind of like it too, so let's get together and have a picture. And I allegedly kissed him on the cheek.
You did, because I think that kiss made headlines.
It did.
They was like the kiss heard across the province or
yes.
Kelowna at the very least.
And
It was,
the gays and mayor kiss and make up, and
Yeah.
the media had fun with it. But the fun part of it was that people wouldn't know unless they watched the video and knew it. I held the pose because I knew they were taking pictures. And he was grinning, and through his teeth he was talking. And he said, what are you doing? You waiting for them to draw it? So we did have fun.
That's good.
And he read the proclamation, and no one threw tomatoes at him or anything.
Well, and it just goes to show, like you said, people can change, politicians can change, people can change, and just the openness and welcoming of the community to say, okay, here's an individual who's been on his own personal journey, he's come a long way, here we are, let's celebrate where we are now or where he is now and not belabor too much what was happening in the past.
Yes, and I had many meetings with him in his office, and he was such a great person to chat with. And he told me that when he went back and went over the story of what happened with me. Mm-hmm. And he said, one thing that really opened his eyes to the negative impact of what happened was he got, the city got tons and tons of letters of support for him. And he said it was before the days of email, so they were all like letters that people wrote. And he said a lot of them were full of hate. And that was their way of supporting what he did. And he said it really opened his eyes. And he said a lot of it came from the religious community. And he was extremely disappointed. Mm-hmm. And he felt that he had made a decision based on his freedom of speech. That was his way of describing it. Mm-hmm. But he said he didn't realize the negative impact that it would have on people.
That's interesting. I have not heard that before. And how, obviously we're talking about the history of Pride in the Okanagan, but one of the things that I did read that former Mayor Walter Gray did say was that that part of his decision was what his constituents would bear, mm-hmm. what was, kind of what the sense amongst the community. And your story about those letters supporting his decision, but so full of hate, goes, well, one, he knew his constituents, but two, the feeling in the community, the vitriol associated with this, with Pride, with associated and directed towards the at that time called the gay and lesbian community.
Yes, yeah.
And so then now here we are, 2020. We have a reimagined Pride because of COVID-19. And so how is this whole process for you to go from the Calgary, your first ever, worried about, to being further outed, the experience with Walter Gray, and now, we have thousands of people attending, and we've got virtual events thanks to Kelowna Pride and Unicorns Live and everybody. What a journey.
It is an incredible journey, Jessica, and I really think that there's been a lot of people with vision and foresight in helping to develop Pride in the way it has been done. And one of the things that I am really proud of is the bridges that were built in the community. Mm-hmm. Because when the crowd started to come out to Pride, so the first year I was here in 2012 for the Pride, there was a few dozen people came out. And then the next year there was hundreds and hundreds, and then it became thousands. And the people that are there are people from every walk of the community. There is groups of business people, there's teams from workplaces, there is, young families with their little kids. There is everyone comes out for it. It's not just the LGBTQ people. It's people who are allies and very awesome allies, and that's what the community really needs.
We can say now, I mean, and we, because there's tons of discussion about being allies and increased awareness and education about acceptance and joining in on the community. In that time, though, from 2011, 2012, 2013, what do you really think helped build that momentum? You talked about community bridges, but there must have been a bit of a change of mindset in Kelowna, in the Okanagan.
I think so, and I think part of it was when Mayor Bazran came on the scene, and in fact, at one of the prides, he read the proclamation. I think the second year, because Mayor Gray was out of town, and I picked up on his attitude right away. It was quite a different tone, and there was, he wasn't afraid to come out personally and support. And so when he became mayor, we chose him as the Grand Marshal for the Pride March. And, I think it was just the evolution of that, the political change, the even for having Christy Clark, Premier Clark, come out and, march in the parade in the march as well. It just shows that there was a lot more attention on it as well from the political side, and also local businesses getting on board and becoming very involved in terms of having their own teams come out and support it. And I remember walking beside Mayor Bazran in the Pride March when he was the Grand Marshal with his two little kids and his mom, and his little boy wasn't very old at the time, maybe 3 or 4. And he was waving the pride flag and he's saying, "Happy New Year." And his dad kept saying, "It's Happy Pride." And he kept, "No, it's Happy New Year." And so I said to Colin, it is a new year in Kelowna. This is what's happening, and this is what people want. People want to show that it's not just tolerance anymore. Because that's what it was before. It was putting up with it, and not so gracefully. And then it just became more of, people want their city to be diversified, and they want it to be a city where everyone's accepted and welcome.
And this also was during your tenure as president of
Yes.
Kelowna Pride as well.
Yes.
And how long were you in that position?
I think until if I remember right, for 3 years. Yeah.
Right. And so a fair amount of also groundwork done outside of the time of Kelowna Pride. I mean, that's a lot of those building bridges and building community. Talk a little bit about the installation of the sidewalk or the painting of the crosswalk. Sorry.
Crosswalk.
Yes. Yeah.
So that was, it was pretty cool, but it started back when Walter Gray was the mayor, and I was visiting with him in his office, and his secretary, Jan, had given him an article about the rainbow crosswalks on Davie Street in Vancouver. And he showed that article to me, and he said, "What do you think?" He said, "Do you think Kelowna's ready for this?" And I just looked at him and I said, "The only way you're going to know is if you do it." And he said, "Well, I'm not sure how it's going to happen, but I think we can start working on it."
Wow.
So
okay.
that was when he was about to retire. And then when Colin became mayor, it wasn't very long after that I got a phone call from the city, and they said, "You have 2 choices of locations for the rainbow crosswalks. We're going to do it. And so if you want it now, we can do it on Lawrence Avenue. if you want it later, we can do it at a different intersection. But the reason we say we can do this one now is because we've just repaved it and we have to redo the crosswalks. And it's not going to cost any more to do rainbow than it would be to do white. And I said, okay, let's just do it. So it was done. They were going to do it overnight if it didn't rain. And so we didn't know for sure exactly what day it was going to be done. But I phoned everybody I knew and said, this is happening. Tomorrow morning, come down and meet at the corner of that intersection and bring your Pride flags. And all the board members of Pride had the Pride t-shirts on, and there was a bunch of community members, and we did a little march around the four corners of the crosswalk.
Well, and that crosswalk, I mean, you talk about the opening of it, but that crosswalk really became a significant point in the city for a number of reasons, and a meeting point, especially there's times of celebration and in times of sorrow and in grief.
Yes, yeah. So just to go back a little bit, when they were first put in, there was some opposition to it. And there was a person called Nancy who what became very public in her opposition to it, and said that she was going to take it all the way to the Supreme Court if she needed to, because the taxpayers, the city was putting their hand in the taxpayers' pocket and taking the money to do this, and she was against it. And there was a big outcry over that, and she got a lot of backlash from people on social media, and people going on. She was a realtor, and they were going onto her Google page and putting bad reviews and stuff. And I was reading some, and they were quite nasty. And then she phoned me, and she said, I want you to call off your people because they're doing all this negative stuff to me. And I said, you know what? Those are not my people. I've read those comments. I don't even know who those people are. But it's people out in the community that really don't like what you did. And I said, you opened that door, and I can't shut it for you. And then she came on. She was interviewed on the radio along with me on a morning show, and she was, very, very much against it. I just kind of made fun of it. And Phil on the radio said to me, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I'm just going to go get our stable of unicorns, and we're going to get on them. We're going to get our glitter guns, and we're going to come down here and protect the crosswalk."
I like that you were adding levity to the situation. I mean,
Yeah.
you could have taken it another way, and you
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah. And then I walked by the crosswalk one day, and I took a picture. There was a young girl, and she was sitting on the corner all by herself, nobody else around, and she had holding a sign that she'd made and said, "Please do not take our rainbow crosswalks away." And so I just stopped and talked to her and asked her what it meant, and she said that it was just a symbol of hope for her future. And it wasn't long after that the Pulse massacre happened at the nightclub in Florida. And it was like instantly there was a Facebook event and people gathering at the Rainbow Crosswalk to just to support each other, because it was so traumatic for the community. So it became not just a symbol of acceptance and diversity in the community, but something to draw people like a magnet, draw people together when things were not so good.
Yeah, and so much more than just. I mean, it's incredible in its simplicity, right? It's paint on a sidewalk or paint on a crosswalk, but so much more than that.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, we're in Pride Week now. What does Pride mean for you? Like Pride Week, the celebration that is associated with it.
It really means the opportunity to. It's an opportunity not just to look forward, but to be present in the moment to what we have to enjoy and celebrate. To look back to the pioneers of the Pride movement, back to Stonewall, to when things started and it was a huge protest and a riot for equality, In Toronto, it was protests against the police brutality, and it's evolved into more, more recognizing intersectionality in the community. Black Lives Matter, like all of these things impact each other. And so it's an opportunity to just be in solidarity for all of that and for equality, for human rights, and just, bring the colorfulness of Pride out where we can all enjoy it.
Sounds like a bit of visioning. I was going to ask you what your hope is for Pride in the coming years, like not just in Kelowna but beyond. And it sounds like you've answered that a little bit in a vision of just a sense of everyone coming together on from all walks of life.
Yes, absolutely. Because there's so much going on in the world right now, not just with COVID, but politically. And I think it's kind of an anxious time for people who are in a minority or who are in a group that has been discriminated against, because the pendulum seems to be swinging backwards. And we don't want it to drag us back into the past. We want to be able to have that future where we don't have to keep fighting. And, there's countries like Poland where they've declared LGBTQ free zones. It's just horrific that people are still facing that, where they had the rights and then they're taken away from them. And what's happening in the US now is very scary as well, because it's so close to home. And elements of that are echoing through Canada. Mm-hmm. So we need to not lose our focus, mm-hmm. and make sure that the Pride movement stays strong and continues to work toward that.
What would you say to any of the straight people watching or tuning in who are nervous to come down to Pride? Say, well, I don't want to come and stand out. Will I be accepted? Or Pride isn't for me?
Pride is for everyone. And the rainbow doesn't exclude anyone. So it's actually been evolving. The Pride flag is even evolving as a symbol to make sure it's more inclusive. And there is people in every walk of life. I could pretty much guarantee that there isn't one person who doesn't have someone in their family who is LGBTQ or not, maybe even out. Mm-hmm. And, so Pride is for everyone, and people need to be educated. Mm-hmm. And so this is part of it, is the education. When people got to know people who were gay or lesbian or trans, it makes a difference when you just realize that everyone is just an ordinary person just like you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we have the same hopes and desires, and we bleed the same blood.
Well, and I think that's one of the elements, one of the things I enjoy about this program, Voices Unheard, is that we have people from all kinds of walks of life, from whatever, and we sit down and talk, and you're nodding and identifying on so many of the levels of, yeah, this person has the same concerns and beliefs and hopes and joy that I do. So I'm going to put you a little bit under pressure on the spot. This is the last show of Voices Unheard for season 1. It's Pride Week. We'd like to end on a note of hope. What can you share with all those watching as we round up the season and we are flowing in the midst of Pride Week?
Well, one of the things that brings hope to my heart is seeing the number of young people that are engaged in change. And I speak every year for the last 7 years to the second year psychology class at UBCO, and it's all young people, and up to, sometimes 200 people in the class. And I see those people as change makers. There's so many people now, and in fact, the professor told me that when his generation, my generation, the dinosaurs die off, things will be much different. So that's a bit of a...
You're like, thanks,
yeah, thanks, I don't know. But I think it's true that the young people are much more accepting and much more intolerant of discrimination, racism, whatever it is that shouldn't be in this world. And I think it's the young people that are the hope for the future.
Great. Well, and they have that hope because of people like you, and all the people that you've worked with and been a part of in your years. So thank you for that. And also hope for people like Kelowna Pride, and thanks to all the businesses that has supported Voices Unheard and Unicorns Live. And this is how we are able to be here and do this. So thank you everyone for joining us for season 1. I look forward to season 2. Stay tuned for more and get out there and enjoy Pride Week. Bye-bye.